Have you ever felt invisible, even when you're always there for everyone? Imagine being endlessly present, constantly reachable, and slowly, quietly, losing all your value. Familiarity breeds contempt, said the ancients, and in today's world of instant access, that truth is more dangerous than ever. This video isn't just about appearing less, it's about reclaiming your power, your presence, and your peace. Think about it. When did people stop listening to you? Stop respecting your time? What if the reason lies not in them, but in how freely you give yourself away? In this journey, we'll uncover what Buddhist wisdom and Machiavellian strategy both understood. Those who hold back, hold power. Stay with me, because beneath the surface of every interaction is a choice. Be common or be compelling. If you're going to get anything out of this video, just get this. Stop being available. That's all you need to know in life. And yes, there's a bonus lesson at the end. Number 1. Withdraw to magnify your presence. How often do you show up for others, but abandon yourself? You answer every message, attend every meeting, say yes, even when your soul screams no. You think you're being kind, reliable, present. But let me ask you this, if you're always available, how valuable are you, really? In a world obsessed with visibility, Buddhism whispers something radical. Withdraw to magnify your presence. Just like the moon never chases attention, yet the entire ocean moves for it. The most powerful people aren't those who speak the loudest, but those who master silence, absence, and the art of stillness. In Buddhist philosophy, true power lies not in dominance, but in discipline. A monk doesn't seek admiration, he seeks truth. He doesn't flood every space, he chooses his presence with intention. Just as a lotus rises from muddy waters, be in the world, not of it. This means living without clinging, being among people, but not owned by their expectations. We often confuse availability with love, attention with meaning. But too much of your presence, without purpose, dilutes your energy. You become background noise in the lives of others. You lose the ability to surprise, to influence, to lead. Constant exposure breeds comfort, and comfort erodes impact. Modern life rewards noise. The busier you look, the more successful you seem. But ancient wisdom teaches the opposite. It says, pull back, watch in silence, speak only when your words can shift the air. Your power multiplies, not when you're seen, but when your absence is felt. Reflect for a moment. Are you present out of purpose or out of habit? There's a reason why the Buddha withdrew from his palace. He understood something the world forgets. Solitude isn't separation, it's self-preservation. He wasn't rejecting the world, he was redirecting his energy inward. In your life too, withdrawal doesn't mean rejection. It's a return to clarity, focus, and strength. If you feel burned out, unheard, unseen, ask yourself, what if my over-availability is the real problem? Every time you respond out of guilt, every time you stay in a room just to prove you're worthy, you leak power. But when you choose where to be, you become magnetic. Here's your practice. This week, say no more often. Delay your responses. Create moments of pause. Observe who respects your space and who panics when they lose access to you. That's where truth hides. And remember, he who is not seen is soon forgotten, but he who is always seen is soon ignored. So become intentional, appear less. But when you do, be unforgettable, because your worth was never in your availability. It was always in your awareness. Withdraw not to disappear, but to rise, like the lotus, like the moon, like those who walk in peace and move the world without making a sound. At the end of all this, ask yourself, What happens to your worth when you no longer try to be everywhere? The answer may just transform your life. 2. Protect your energy like sacred fire. Are you letting people consume you for free? You give your time like it's endless. You let energy drainers walk in and out of your life as if your peace is public property. You answer calls while your spirit begs for silence. You scroll for hours, not realizing what's being stolen isn't time, it's you. In Buddhist philosophy, the self is not owned, it's observed. But that doesn't mean it's unguarded. It means being awake enough to know what enters your space has the power to shape your mind. Do not seek the company of the many, but the company of the wise. Not everyone deserves your presence. Not everyone should have access to your heart. A sacred lamp cannot burn in a storm. It must be shielded, not because it's weak, but because it holds light that matters. That's you, your peace, your attention, your fire. You burn for everything and wonder why there's nothing left when night comes. You give your energy without asking if it's being honored. But here's the truth. If you're constantly available, you're constantly exhausted. Think about it. How often do you say yes because you're afraid of disappointing someone? How many times have you betrayed your own needs just to keep others comfortable? The world won't tell you to protect your energy. It will praise your hustle, reward your sacrifice, and cheer you on as you burn out. But Buddhism teaches the opposite. Your stillness is more powerful than your availability. Protect your mind like a sacred garden. Not everyone should walk through it with muddy shoes. You must learn to filter life, not as an act of arrogance, but as an act of self-respect. Your energy is sacred fire. Every interaction is either feeding the flame or putting it out. Ask yourself, how would your life change if you only allowed what nourishes you? What if you only gave your time to what made you grow? What if you stopped trying to save people who only drain you in return? This isn't selfish, it's spiritual maturity. You do not need to attend every conversation. You do not need to explain your silence. You do not need to answer every message just because it was sent. Distance isn't disconnection, it's discernment. Your new path begins with one brave act. Set boundaries that honor your peace more than others' expectations. You are not rude for resting. You are not cruel for choosing calm. You are not weak for walking away from chaos. And when you begin to say no to what drains you, something powerful happens. You begin to say yes to yourself, to clarity, to peace, to purpose. Let your energy be rare. Let your presence be earned. Because the more protected your flame, the brighter it burns. So now, reflect. Are you living as a sacred lamp or a fire anyone can blow out? The answer will either keep you trapped or set you free. 3. Silence is your greatest power. Are you speaking from wisdom or from the need to be heard? There's a moment in every heated conversation, every unjust situation, where your ego rises like a wave, ready to crash. It screams, say something, defend yourself, prove your worth. But what if I told you? True power isn't in the response, it's in the restraint. In a world addicted to noise, silence is rebellion. In Buddhism, it's more than that. It's mastery. Speak only if it improves upon the silence. That's not just poetic advice, it's a strategy for living. Because thunder roars, but it's the silent moon that pulls the tides. The most powerful people are not the loudest in the room. They are the calmest. They don't argue to be understood. They understand that peace is louder than proof. Imagine this. You're in a room full of chaos. People talk over one another. Opinions fly. Everyone wants to be right. But one person sits still, present, unmoved. They say nothing, but everyone feels their presence. That's power. That's the energy of someone who doesn't need to perform. Someone whose silence speaks louder than noise ever could. But silence isn't passive. It's intentional. It's not about avoidance. It's about choosing peace over pride. And that's a difficult choice, especially when your ego is bruised. The ego wants reaction. Wisdom wants reflection. The ego wants applause. Wisdom wants truth. Can you remain quiet when your ego demands a reaction? Buddhist monks train in silence not because they have nothing to say, but because they know the discipline of not saying it. They listen, they observe, they speak when it brings clarity, not chaos. This is the kind of presence that shifts energy in a room without uttering a word. You don't need to explain your growth. You don't need to justify your boundaries. You don't need to argue your value. Silence will do it for you. And when you let go of the need to be right, something beautiful happens. You become free. Free from the burden of always having to react. Free from the constant tug of war for validation. Free from noise. Ask yourself, how many times have I spoken just to be seen? How often do I react when I should simply observe? In moments of tension, your silence is a mirror. It reveals more about others than words ever could. And in that space of stillness, clarity arises. So here's your invitation. The next time life provokes you, pause. Feel the urge to react, then breathe, and don't. Not because you're weak, but because you've realized your peace is more valuable than any temporary win. Remember, thunder may capture attention, but silence commands respect. Let your calm disturb the chaos. Let your quiet presence speak louder than your words ever could. Because sometimes the strongest thing you can say is nothing at all. When you choose silence, you don't disappear. You deepen. 4. Master the art of saying no without guilt. What would you gain if you stopped fearing disapproval? Most people spend their lives bending for acceptance, bending for approval, bending so far for others that they forget how to stand for themselves. But a tree that bends with every wind never grows deep roots. It may survive, but it will never thrive. And you're not here just to survive. You're here to rise, calm, strong, and unapologetically aligned with your truth. You yourself, as much as anybody in the entire universe, deserve your love and attention. That's not just comfort. It's a call to courage. In Buddhist philosophy, love begins with self-awareness. And sometimes, love sounds like one simple, powerful word: no. Saying no isn't rejection, it's redirection. It's realignment with your higher path. The more you honor your time, your peace, your space, the more you begin to walk the rare road. But most people are terrified of saying no. Why? Because they fear being misunderstood. They fear being called selfish, difficult, cold. So they stay in rooms that drain them, in conversations that belittle them, in patterns that shrink them, all to avoid disappointing others. And in the process, they disappoint the one soul they can never escape: themselves. Ask yourself honestly, what are you tolerating that drains your light? What habits, people, or expectations are you allowing to pull you away from your center? What would happen if, just once, you said no, not out of anger, but out of peace? In Buddhism, clarity is kindness, and the truth is, when you say yes while your heart says no, you're not being kind. You're being dishonest, with yourself and with others. Mastering the art of saying no without guilt is not about shutting people out. It's about inviting your purpose in. When you stop chasing approval, you start walking in power. You stop being available to everything and become available to what truly matters. This isn't about arrogance. It's about alignment. It's about protecting your path from the noise of a world that constantly demands more than it deserves. You don't need to attend every event. You don't need to answer every message. You don't need to explain your silence. You just need to listen to your soul and act accordingly. Practice this. The next time something feels heavy, wrong, forced, pause, feel the discomfort, then say no. Gently, clearly, with love. And watch what shifts. Watch how your energy begins to return. Watch how your focus sharpens. Watch how your self-respect blooms. Because every no you give to the world is a yes whispered to your spirit. So, what would you gain if you stopped fearing disapproval? Peace, power, presence. A life that reflects who you truly are, not who the world expects you to be. Remember, the strongest tree is not the one that pleases the wind, but the one that stands in its own rooted stillness. Say no, not because you don't care, but because you finally do. 5. Be like still water, not a rushing river. When was the last time you were fully present with silence? Most people run from it. They fill every quiet space with noise, notifications, small talk, endless scrolling. Not because they love distraction, but because they fear what stillness might reveal. But in Buddhist teaching, stillness is not emptiness, it is clarity. And in clarity, your truth begins to rise. The mind is everything. What you think, you become. If your mind is in chaos, your life will reflect it. But if your mind is calm, like still water, it will reflect the truth. Still water doesn't chase, it doesn't react, it observes. And because of that, it sees everything as it is. Rushing rivers make noise, but they distort. They carry debris. They move fast, but without depth. That's how most people live, always in motion, never in presence, always doing, rarely being. But ask yourself, are you running from stillness or toward your true self? Society tells you to keep moving. Be productive, be visible, be everywhere. But Buddhism teaches the opposite. Be here, fully, quietly, mindfully. Stillness is where insight lives. It's where self-awareness blooms. It's where the real you whispers underneath the noise of expectation. A powerful person doesn't need to be constantly active to feel worthy. They don't need to be seen to be significant. Their strength comes from their centered presence, calm, deliberate, and inwardly aligned. You may have been taught that doing more leads to more, but often doing less with more intention brings you closer to what actually matters. There's a kind of discipline in stillness that the world overlooks. It takes strength to pause, to not react, to resist the urge to fill the void. It takes power to sit in silence long enough to feel your own heartbeat, your breath, your truth. And that's the paradox. The more still you become, the more rare and valuable your presence feels. True influence isn't loud, it's grounded. Imagine this. 2 people enter a room. One speaks constantly, filling the air with opinions. The other speaks little, but listens deeply, moves intentionally, radiates calm. Whose presence do you remember? Not the one who shouted, but the one who made silence feel meaningful. That can be you. You don't have to chase recognition. You don't have to prove your value by being constantly available. You simply need to be present, so deeply, so still, that your energy speaks louder than words. So start small. Practice 5 minutes of silence a day. Sit, breathe. Observe your thoughts without chasing them. Let your mind settle like water in a glass. That's where wisdom begins. That's where clarity takes root. Stillness is not withdrawal. It's a return to your inner world, your deeper self, your truest path. Remember, Rushing rivers may be loud, but they're shallow. Be still water, calm, deep, and reflective of truth. Because in a world that's always running, those who are still will always stand out. 6. Let detachment shape your freedom. What or who are you clinging to that's keeping you ordinary? We don't realize it, but much of our exhaustion comes not from action, but from attachment. Attachment to opinions, attachment to being liked, attachment to being seen. And yet, Buddhism teaches attachment is the root of all suffering. If suffering is fire, then attachment is the fuel, and the moment you begin to let go, the fire starts to die down. Imagine the eagle. It flies not because it tries harder than other birds, but because it carries less. Its strength is in its ability to release. Now ask yourself, what are you carrying that's keeping you grounded? Constant connection? The need to reply instantly? The pressure to be liked by everyone? You don't need to be available to everyone. In fact, the more available you are, the more your value dissolves into the background. True power comes not from being everywhere. It comes from being somewhere fully, with depth and intention. Detachment doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop controlling, you stop clinging, you stop confusing being needed with being worthy. The rarest souls walk with lightness, not because they avoid life, but because they move through it without being chained to every opinion, every invitation, every expectation. They don't fear missing out. They trust that what's meant for them will never require them to overextend their spirit. You may feel guilt when you step back, guilt when you say no, guilt when you don't answer every call or explain your every move. But remember this, you don't owe your presence to everyone. You owe your peace to yourself. And sometimes peace looks like detachment, not coldness, but clarity. We've been taught that being a good person means being always present, always agreeable, always open. But Buddhism teaches freedom through release. Release of ego, release of control, release of the false identity built on other people's approval. The more you let go, the lighter you become. And the lighter you become, the higher you can rise. So pause, reflect. Who or what are you still holding on to that makes you feel heavy, reactive, or obligated? A toxic relationship, a need to explain yourself, an image you're desperately trying to maintain. If you let go today, what would you finally be free to do? What version of yourself would emerge in that space of freedom? Start by choosing silence over explanation, distance over drama, presence over performance. Let detachment be your discipline, not because you are indifferent, but because your spirit is no longer available for things that drain it. That is not selfishness. That is wisdom. In the end, freedom is not found in accumulation, but in release. The less you cling, the more you soar. Be like the eagle. Rise, not because you fought to be seen, but because you finally let go of everything that kept you small. You were never meant to be ordinary. You were meant to fly light. 7. Make mystery your magnet. Are you performing or preserving? In a world obsessed with visibility, it's easy to forget the value of mystery. We've been conditioned to share everything, our thoughts, our plans, our every move, as if constant exposure is the price of relevance. But Buddhism teaches us a different truth. Live quietly in the moment and see the beauty of all before you. Silence isn't emptiness, it's elegance, and mystery, when rooted in authenticity, becomes your magnet. Think of the hidden mountain. You don't see it often, but when you do, you're in awe. Its presence is silent, yet it commands respect. Now compare that to the loud hill that's always in view, familiar, exposed, predictable. The mountain doesn't need to announce itself, it simply is. The same applies to you. The more you reveal, the more people feel entitled to your energy. But when you preserve parts of yourself, your plans, your growth, your spirit, you keep your power intact. Overexposure dulls impact. When you're always available, always talking, always explaining, you become common. And powerful people are never common. They don't chase attention, they carry presence. They don't need to broadcast their evolution. It reveals itself silently through their actions. When was the last time you let your energy speak instead of your words? This isn't about secrecy, it's about sovereignty. You are not obligated to narrate your every step. Not every thought needs a caption. Not every success requires applause. There's something deeply spiritual about holding space for your own transformation without external validation. In Buddhism, detachment from ego allows us to move with clarity. And ego loves to be seen. But the soul thrives in stillness. Ask yourself, how much more peace would you gain if you stopped explaining everything? How much more power would you hold if you protected your journey from unnecessary eyes? When you stop performing and start preserving, you stop leaking your light for approval. You create sacred space within yourself, and that's where true growth happens. Mystery isn't manipulation, it's maturity. It says, I am not hiding, I am simply holding my energy, holding my peace, holding my worth, quietly. The strongest trees don't shout about their roots. They grow in silence and they weather storms unseen. Start with small acts. Don't post everything you do. Don't feel compelled to explain your decisions. Let your transformation be a personal ceremony, not a public broadcast. Preserve your spirit like sacred flame, intensely alive, but not for show. Remember, what is rare becomes revered, and what is always seen soon becomes overlooked. So dare to disappear, not to escape the world, but to return to yourself. Let your absence speak louder than your presence ever did. Be the hidden mountain, still, grounded, powerful, because you no longer need to be loud to be felt. Let mystery be your magnet, because in a world that shows everything, what is unseen becomes unforgettable. 8. Prioritize depth over width. Are you spreading yourself thin to feel valuable? In a world that worships busyness, we've confused motion with meaning. We jump from task to task, conversation to conversation, platform to platform, hoping that the more visible we are, the more we'll matter. But Buddhism teaches a deeper truth. Better than 1,000 hollow words is one word that brings peace. Real power isn't found in volume, it's found in depth. A deep well quenches more thirst than a wide puddle. So why are you trying to be everywhere for everyone all at once? Powerful people don't chase width, they commit to depth. They don't aim to impress many, they aim to impact deeply. They're not found everywhere because they've chosen to be fully present somewhere. That's what makes them magnetic. It's not how often they show up, it's how fully they show up. When your energy is scattered, your presence is diluted. But when you choose one path, one purpose, one space, and give it your full soul, you become unforgettable. This isn't about doing less just to rest. It's about doing deeper so you rise. Depth builds mastery. Depth builds legacy. But depth also requires sacrifice. You cannot dig a well if you keep moving your shovel. You cannot grow roots if you're constantly replanting. The question is, what's one area of your life that deserves your deeper devotion? Is it your craft, your healing, your inner peace? What are you neglecting in the name of being seen? There's a quiet power in being intentional. in choosing fewer relationships but nurturing them deeply, in picking one vision and seeing it through, in disconnecting from noise so you can reconnect with your truth. You don't become rare by doing what everyone else is doing. You become rare by doing what others don't have the patience for: depth. Buddhist wisdom teaches us to train the mind to focus, to observe, to understand, not to wander endlessly in search of validation. Imagine the strength you'd gain if you stopped measuring your worth by how much you do and started measuring it by how deeply you feel it. One meaningful act done with full presence can change your life. 1,000 empty ones only exhaust you. So be bold enough to step back, not because you're falling behind, but because you're going deeper. Walk away from what scatters your focus. Say no to what doesn't align. Build something sacred, not wide, but deep. Let people wonder why you're not always seen. And let them discover, when they finally meet you, that you've been building something unshakable beneath the surface. Stop trying to be popular. Start becoming profound. Because in the end, people don't remember how often you showed up. They remember how deeply you made them feel. Be like the deep well, silent, centered, and able to quench 1,000 souls, not by appearing everywhere, but by being fully present where it matters most. 9. Find solitude and you will find yourself. Can you sit alone without reaching for your phone or another voice? In today's world, solitude is almost feared. Every quiet moment is quickly filled with noise, notifications, scrolling, distractions. But what if the most powerful version of you is hiding behind that silence you're running from? A diamond forms alone, under pressure and in darkness, not in comfort, not in crowds, but in still, unseen spaces. Delight in meditation and solitude, says the Buddha. Compose yourself, be happy. Because happiness isn't always found in more, it's found in less. We often think that presence means being constantly available, replying instantly, showing up endlessly, being everywhere to prove our worth. But here's the truth. When you stop fearing solitude, you begin knowing yourself. And when you know yourself, you no longer need to beg the world for direction. Most people lose themselves by trying to be present for everyone else. But powerful people? They appear less because they go inward more. They prioritize time alone, not as isolation, but as alignment. Think of the monk who retreats to the mountains, not because he hates the world, but because he must meet himself without interruption. That's where clarity begins. That's where the noise of ego and expectation quiets down. Solitude isn't loneliness. It's where your soul becomes visible. Have you ever noticed that your deepest insights never came in a crowd? They came in the stillness, in the moments no one saw. Because solitude strips away the performance. It reveals the raw, unfiltered you. If you've been feeling scattered, overwhelmed, emotionally drained, it may not be that life is too much. It might be that you've been too available. Your energy, your thoughts, your time, constantly given, rarely protected. What would change if you gave yourself 30 minutes a day? Just you. No screen, no outside voice, no doing, only being. What would surface? What part of yourself have you only met in silence? In Buddhism, solitude is not escapism. It is sacred discipline. It is how we recharge our spirit, listen without judgment, and observe without reacting. The most magnetic people carry a calm that can't be faked. That kind of calm comes from stillness, from time spent with no agenda, no audience, no noise. The calm that says, I know who I am, even when no one is looking. So start choosing solitude. Choose it not because the world rejected you, but because you're finally choosing yourself. Stop apologizing for not always being available. Stop filling every gap with distraction. Instead, fill it with presence. Fill it with breath. Fill it with your own undivided attention. And from that space, you'll rise. Not loud, not desperate, but centered. Power doesn't come from being constantly seen. It comes from being deeply rooted. Be like the diamond. Hidden, formed alone, and unshakably radiant when it emerges. Because the person you're trying to become is already within you, waiting to be found in the silence you keep avoiding. 10. Stop reacting. Start observing. Can you be the observer, not the reactor? In a world where everything demands an immediate response, the art of observing is becoming a rare yet essential skill. How often do you find yourself caught in the whirlwind of life, reacting impulsively to every situation, every comment, every disruption? The pressure to engage, to speak, to act is relentless. But what if the most powerful thing you could do in those moments is nothing? What if, instead of reacting to the chaos, you simply took a step back and allowed it to pass without being swept into it? In Buddhism, peace is not something you search for outside yourself. Peace comes from within. Do not seek it without, says the Buddha. The chaos we see around us is often just a mirror reflecting our own inner state. If we are constantly reactive, constantly allowing external circumstances to control our emotions, we remain tossed about like leaves in a storm. But when we detach from those emotional storms, when we stop reacting and start observing, we gain power over ourselves and over our surroundings. Imagine a mirror. It reflects everything, but it doesn't fight what it sees. It doesn't try to change the reflection. It simply is. This is the power of observation. When you stop reacting, you start witnessing. The mind becomes a calm lake, undisturbed by the waves of external influences. You can still see the waves, but you no longer feel compelled to ride them. Your response becomes intentional rather than impulsive. In moments of stress, we often think that responding immediately is the only way to regain control. But powerful people know that true strength lies in their ability to pause, observe, and choose their response. This is the difference between reaction and response. Reactions are born from unconscious impulses fueled by fear, anger, or anxiety. But responses? They come from a place of calm clarity, from the ability to step back and see the bigger picture. So next time life tests you, take a deep breath. Ask yourself, am I reacting or am I observing? Can you witness the emotions without becoming them? Can you watch the chaos unfold without losing your sense of peace? This practice of detachment allows you to move through life with greater ease, avoiding the emotional roller coaster that most people live on. The path to inner peace doesn't come from avoiding conflict or suppressing emotions. It comes from practicing the art of detachment, of observing without judgment. In that space of stillness, we can find our true power. You don't need to be pulled into every argument, every drama, every situation. Instead, remain grounded in your own peace. Let go of the need to react. The more you practice this, the stronger you become. What if peace wasn't something you found, but something you practiced? What if every moment of stillness you create is a step toward a more powerful version of yourself? Start today. Stop reacting. Start observing. And watch how your world begins to shift. 11. Create distance to invite respect. The closer you are, the more you risk burning yourself out. Have you ever noticed how the fire feels most intense when you're too close to it? Yet, from a distance, it can still warm you without consuming you. This is the power of distance in cultivating respect. In Buddhism, The idea of creating space isn't about isolation. It's about repositioning your value. When you're constantly available, constantly accessible, you're unknowingly diminishing your worth. Just like a fire that's too close can scorch, your constant presence can lead others to take you for granted. The absence of your energy, on the other hand, invites curiosity and respect. The key to powerful presence isn't about being everywhere at once. It's about being selective about where you invest your energy. The most respected individuals aren't the ones who are always showing up, always answering calls, or always saying yes. Instead, they know the value of stepping back and letting their absence speak volumes. In those moments of distance, others begin to recognize the richness of your time and energy. This shift, choosing not to be overly available, invites a different kind of respect. It signals that your presence is a privilege, not a given. Think about how people treat you when they know you're always at their disposal. There's a sense of entitlement. They expect you to be there at the drop of a hat, and soon they stop appreciating your contributions. But what happens when you start creating distance? When you allow others to approach you rather than always rushing to them? The dynamic changes. Suddenly, your time, your energy, and your presence are seen as more valuable. You become someone people make an effort for rather than someone they take for granted. In Buddhism, there's a deep understanding that contentment, not excess, brings true richness. He who is contented is rich, the teachings say. The idea here is that when you step back, detach from constant engagement, and allow your space to be filled with purposeful energy, you cultivate a sense of peace and balance that is rare and powerful. You stop chasing connections, and in doing so, you begin to attract the ones that truly matter. What would happen if you stopped chasing validation and connection? If you no longer felt the need to be constantly available? Your energy would shift. You would reclaim your power and your time. Instead of scattering yourself across 1,000 demands, you would focus on what nourishes you, what aligns with your purpose. This doesn't mean abandoning others. It means protecting your energy, preserving your presence for moments that truly matter. Distance doesn't make you less. It makes you more. It amplifies your value and invites a deeper level of respect from those who truly recognize your worth. Are you too accessible to those who don't value your time? How would your energy shift if you stopped chasing connection and let others come to you? The power of distance is profound. It's time to step back, recenter yourself, and allow others to appreciate your presence in the way it was always meant to be appreciated: rare, intentional, and invaluable. Bonus lesson: design your life with intention, not approval. Imagine a sculptor chipping away at a block of marble, carefully removing everything that doesn't belong. With each strike, the true shape, the masterpiece, begins to emerge. This is how you should approach your life. Every decision, every moment of energy should be intentional, crafted with purpose and aligned with your true self. But too often, we live to please others, to fit into the molds society gives us. We chase approval, we seek validation, and we forget the most important question: whose life are we living? When you start living intentionally, rather than for the approval of others, you naturally become rare. You begin to align with your true essence, and in doing so, you stand apart from the noise of the world. You stop seeking outside validation and start living for yourself. Like the sculptor, you begin to chip away at everything that isn't part of your true self. The unnecessary distractions, the people-pleasing behaviors, and the expectations imposed on you all fall away. What remains is something pure, something real. Buddhism teaches us that true freedom comes from within. It's about aligning our actions with our inner wisdom, not chasing external approval. When we design our lives based on the expectations of others, we lose sight of what truly matters to us. We become lost in a cycle of doing more, being more, and saying yes to everything because we fear rejection. But in doing so, we are surrendering our power. Think about the moments you've said yes when your heart wasn't in it, the times you've stretched yourself thin to meet the demands of others. Now, imagine how much energy you'd have if you said no to the things that drain you and yes to the things that align with your purpose. This doesn't mean abandoning people. It means prioritizing what nourishes your soul. You begin to design a life based on your values, your goals, and your passions, not the social expectations that keep you spinning in circles. Living intentionally doesn't mean you abandon your relationships or responsibilities. It means you put yourself first in a way that aligns with your true purpose. You stop trying to be everything to everyone, and instead, you focus on being everything to yourself. This is the essence of Buddhism, the belief that you must first find peace within before you can give that peace to others. So, whose life are you living? Are you sculpting your life with intention, or are you letting the demands of others dictate your days? What would happen if you stopped letting your social feed or the pressures of society shape your choices? Instead of chasing external approval, you would begin to create a life that is uniquely yours. A life that aligns with your deepest desires, your truest self, and your highest potential. When you design your life with intention, you become the sculptor of your own fate. You create a masterpiece that is not only rare, but also deeply fulfilling. Your life becomes a reflection of who you truly are, not who others want you to be. The question remains, what would your days look like if they were sculpted by your soul, not your social feed? Quick summary of the principles. Withdraw to magnify your presence. When you're always available, you lose value. Strategic absence creates curiosity, respect, and deeper appreciation. Learning when to step back is a form of self-mastery that commands attention without effort. Protect your energy. Like sacred fire, your energy is sacred and limited. Stop giving it away freely. Set firm boundaries and stop saying yes out of guilt or fear. True strength is found in the ability to conserve your inner resources for what truly matters. Silence is your greatest power. You don't need to respond to every word or prove your point. Silence reflects confidence, control, and wisdom. In a noisy world, your quiet presence speaks louder than empty noise ever could. Master the art of saying no without guilt. Saying no is an act of self-respect. It's not about rejection. It's about choosing alignment over approval. The more intentional you become with your yes, the more powerful your presence becomes. Be like still water, not a rushing river. Stillness sharpens clarity and inner peace. Constant activity isn't progress, it's distraction. Create space for deep focus, and you'll become someone others can't ignore or replace. Let detachment shape your freedom. Let go of attachments to validation, control, and being needed. Freedom is born when you stop clinging. Detachment doesn't mean not caring. It means caring from a place of inner strength, not dependency. Make mystery your magnet. Don't share every thought, move, or emotion. Preserve your depth. Let people earn the right to know you. Being mysterious is not about secrecy, but about maintaining sacred space. Prioritize depth over width. You don't need to be everywhere to be effective. Focus on one thing and master it. The rarest people are not those who do many things, but those who go deep into what truly matters. Find solitude, and you will find yourself. Solitude isn't loneliness, it's your spiritual mirror. Time alone reconnects you with your inner truth and heals mental clutter. Make space for yourself before you try to show up for others. Stop reacting. Start observing. Emotional mastery starts when you observe instead of react. Practice witnessing your thoughts and situations calmly. The one who sees clearly becomes unshakable. Create distance to invite respect. Too much closeness can breed contempt. Pull back when necessary to allow others to appreciate your presence. Distance isn't rejection. It's a signal of self-worth. Design your life with intention, not approval. Stop living for likes, trends, or validation. Shape your life based on what aligns with your soul's purpose. Rare people don't follow, they lead from within. Most people live on autopilot, endlessly reacting, endlessly available, and endlessly drained. But true peace and personal power come from doing the opposite. Slowing down, saying no, and choosing what matters over what's popular. The path to becoming rare isn't paved by doing more. It's revealed by becoming less accessible and more intentional. You are not here to be consumed by others' expectations. You are here to cultivate your own energy, to become so centered in who you are that you no longer need validation, noise, or constant connection to feel alive. Control begins when you start making conscious choices rather than emotional reactions. These 12 principles are not rules, they're mirrors. They reflect the truth of your potential when you stop leaking your energy and start preserving your power. This isn't about ego, it's about elevation. When you stop being easily available, you start becoming deeply impactful. Remember, the strongest tree does not grow in the crowd. It grows in solitude, reaching deep before it reaches high. If you want to rise, you must go inward. Let your silence, your boundaries, your depth, and your presence become your loudest voice. When you let go of who you're told to be, you begin to become who you truly are. In Zen, the empty space is as meaningful as the form. Make space. From that space, you'll rise. If this touched your soul, like and share this video. Drop your thoughts in the comments. What spoke to you the most? And don't forget to subscribe to Deep Wisdom for more inspiring Buddhist insights on living a powerful, peaceful life.